Coming to you from the Strings and Things studio in Ventura, California, this is the Strings Unraveled Book Club.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's early.
This is an early morning recording, which is not usual for
We
us.
either
Usually
do
we're
late or
in the
early.
evening, so I appreciate you guys meeting me early because
Yeah.
this is my preference, but
For
I
sure.
know it's not
Yeah.
everybody's.
I'm the night owl, and I like the nighttime, but this is Katie. This is Katie's
I'm
time.
like prime in the morning, so
Yeah, I mean, I start my mornings about this time anyway, but I still don't have to talk to anybody for about 40 more minutes,
I'm
usually.
Temperament makes a huge difference. Some people say not ready for work. I think not ready to talk to people is
Yeah.
more of a setting for me.
Yeah. I was going to get up earlier, though, mindful of that fact, but that didn't. I mean, my alarm went off.
Yeah. I was woken up at 1 a.m. by a
Oh,
screaming
no.
child because we were babysitting all weekend. So,
Oh,
but it's fine.
I got to bed at 3 a.m. So
Oh well.
so I'm on fumes. I didn't even have caffeine this morning. So
that's a sad story.
I have coffee.
You can make coffee. Yeah,
We have a coffee maker. All right, we'll pause so Karin can get some coffee.
Awesome.
Okay, Karin is back with coffee, so we can get started.
Yep. Yay.
Yay.
It smells really good in here now.
It does. Now it smells like coffee.
Sorry, you guys can't smell how good it smells.
Smell-o-vision. Someone
Smello audio.
Smell-o-audio. Yeah, smell-o-audio. That would be kind of weird.
Yeah,
but
I don't know how that
it
would
could
work.
be good, but then the potential for evil is also
Well,
there.
that's
right,
true.
right? It's like,
Think about like if you're reading a book or listening to an audiobook and the sights and if of all the sounds and smells of the place. I mean, in an audiobook you're getting the sounds, so if the smells of the place brought it real.
On the book.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
there's parts of this book I would have liked to have a sensory smell of, like the smell of the ocean,
but not necessarily the fish in the hold.
Yeah, right. Or when she's cleaning out the bilge tank.
The bilge tank. Ew.
Or just the general smell of the boat. Actually, never mind. I kind of like that smell, but I don't think I like to live in it, which was where I was going with how smell-o-vision could go wrong. You know, like how dinner can smell really good when it's cooking.
Yeah.
And then 4 or 5 hours later, it's like, oh, look at all that food smell in the house now.
Yep.
It's like, so last Saturday, although I guess by the time you get this, it's a few Saturdays back, I thought it'd be great to...
Really, it's only going to be 2. This goes out on Monday, right?
Oh, that's right.
2 Saturdays ago.
2 Saturdays ago. I got some fresh shrimp to go into to dress up my box noodles. And, the next day when I came in, because the smell of the the shrimp shells was like, oh, that's nasty.
Yep.
Taking that out.
Well, we hinted at it, but what book did we read this month?
We read Migrations by Charlotte McConaghy. Okay, thank you.
I heard someone say it.
Thank God. Oh, well, yeah, the audiobook does say it several times. This is a summary from one of my favorite places to get our questions and summaries, litlovers.com. It's from the publisher, actually, but that's a good resource website. A novel set on the brink of catastrophe as a young woman chases the world's last birds and her own final chance for redemption. Franny Stone has always been a wanderer. By following the ocean's tides and the birds that soar above, she can forget the losses that have haunted her life. But when the wild she loves begins to disappear, Franny can no longer wander without a destination. She arrives in remote Greenland with one purpose, to find the world's last flock of Arctic terns and track their final migration. She convinces Ennis Malone, a captain of the Sagani, to take her on board, winning over his eccentric crew with promises that the birds will lead them to fish. As the Sagani fights its way south, Franny's dark history begins to unspool. Battered by night terrors, accumulating a pile of unsent letters, and obsessed with pursuing the terns at any cost, Franny is full of secrets. When her quest threatens the safety of the entire crew, Franny must ask herself what she is really running toward and running from. Propelled by a narrator as fierce and fragile as the turns she is following, Charlotte McConaghy's Migrations is both an ode to our threatened world and a breathtaking page-turner about the lengths we will go to for the people we love.
Okay, then.
Impressions of the book? Feelings about the book?
I enjoyed it. The good thing about book club is that it forces me to read things that I would not have picked myself, and I probably wouldn't have picked this up just if I saw the cover and read the back of the book.
You know, even though it's my pick, I also would not have chosen this book unprompted.
Yeah, I was like, okay, that sounds fine. And I thought it was fine. You know, it was compelling, and I enjoyed listening to it. I appreciated that it wasn't super long. Because I felt like it could have been much longer if she wanted it to be.
Oh, I don't know if I could have taken much.
Yeah,
I love
that's what
this
I'm saying.
book.
I'm glad it wasn't.
It was actually the perfect length.
Yeah.
It's very rare that people know when to stop.
That's a good point.
This was, and the way the story unfolded, giving you, it as the story unfolds, my impression of the characters
so artful,
so changed. Yeah, so and that's a gift to be able to do. The gift of storytelling, where your initial impression is one thing, and over time, as you hear bits and pieces of their backstory, you're like, oh, okay.
I think that's my like feeling about the book is that it was extremely well written. I enjoyed the book based on that, and the character was interesting, but I felt like if it had been any longer, I was already growing a little tired of her by the end of the book, but if it had been longer, I would have been like, okay, I'm over this.
See, I feel differently about her. I liked her more as the book went on. But yeah, the hero's journey is so exhausting usually anyway. Yeah. Like, it had to come to an end.
Yes.
Or this story, you know. I had a hard time getting into the book because we were coming off of the energy of Outlawed.
And yeah, it's very different.
And she's just so different. And the way she's painted and then unveiled, like, I had a full evolution of my feelings towards her because I found her very annoying at the beginning of the book.
Yes. Yeah, I did too. I'm like, okay, this person that's just kind of that has this fantasy idea. She's got no money, no real plan other than she's going to convince somebody.
Okay, we know she doesn't have money. Yeah.
At the time, we don't know it. We just think she's
at
got
the
no
beginning,
money.
I was fully fooled that she's a researcher and she's doing this research, and her only motive is her care for her work.
And we should say it's set in a future where
all. Is it the future, or is it just like a?
No, it's a near future.
No, it's in the near future because
tell if it was like the future or just a reimagining of the present time.
Oh, that's fair.
Oh, okay.
Because the technology and stuff didn't seem that different from present day.
I think it's what you said. It's a reimagining of the present day, but it
could be near future too.
Yeah.
Let's just call it an alternate universe. In this alternate dimensional universe,
I think it's dangerous to call it an. I think that.
Can I finish?
No, because I think it's dangerous to call it an alternate universe because that negates the bigger story that Charlotte's making.
That's very true.
That's true.
But let's just say it's an imagining of the near future.
An imagining of the near future where pretty much all animals are extinct or are close or beyond saving because things in the world and environment have killed off the animals so much.
People.
We have
a clear indictment of human beings.
Yeah. I mean, think about a time where there's no animals in the wild or in the zoos. Zoos don't even exist. There's
one reserve,
and there's really no birds. No, did I appreciate birds more? No, I still don't like when they wake me up. I still do not like happy sounds of birds in the morning. I'm not a morning person.
I'm feeling so emotional about birds when I see them right now.
But I do now. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, because our world's so vitally important.
And it's pretty clear
they're so important to us.
That's the point of the book.
Yeah.
From the get-go, but I must have not been paying attention at the beginning because a couple, chapters in or whatever, she was talking about how there weren't any animals left. And I was like, what do you mean there's not? Wait, what's going on?
Well,
but I don't know.
I think
all of a sudden I was like, wait, that's what's going on? I don't remember that.
It's very subtle.
It's very subtle. None of us got that at first, and it's kind of I thought
I had missed something.
But I think that's the point. We're so unaware of these animals in the world around us, we take them for granted. You know, we don't, it's like a different reality for us. We're trying, it is subtle, and it's not, it's like, that's what made it feel like a different, like you said, a reimagining. I'm like, I can't even imagine. There's no animals in captivity. There's no animals in the wild. You mean, what do you mean there's no animals?
Yeah.
I'm kind of confused. And that's the point of this sort of happened. They were told this was going to happen. People went about their lives not paying attention, and it happened.
And the lions are going extinct. And
yeah. It all happens in her lifetime. Like I made, which might be why it's confusing. Like sometimes there's animals and sometimes there's wild interactions with animals and sometimes there's not. Like I made a lot of notes during this book.
How old do you think she is?
She's 34.
Right.
They said that at the end.
So can you imagine within the scope of 34 years, all animal life, you know, is pretty much zero. What would the environment look like? Oh, that's scary.
Well, thank you. That's perfect segue, Karin. Because the note I made myself is this book is like many horror stories in the subtle everyday terror of how change and bad things can sneak up on our normal lives. The idea that all birds could be gone in one person's lifespan.
Yeah.
Like it's like some of the best horror movies that are out there right now. It's just, we're living our everyday sunshiny life and there's nothing left except humans.
And it's so sad to think that we could see that happening.
Right.
Yeah. It's not that it's so, you know, out of left field that you're like, that would never happen. But
right.
Like,
but it could, because most of the majority of us go about our lives with zero interaction of any kind with anything other than a domesticated pet. So the concept of an animal in the wild, other than the occasional, like where we live, condor or falcon that flies overhead, again, birds.
I saw a frog hopping down the
I hear a toad outside my window every day. So I know he's out there. I see lizards all the time.
Think how absolutely quiet. You know, I can imagine, like, we're a block away from a riverbed, and in the spring I hear the coyote pups yipping.
Oh, I could hear them last night.
Yeah. Okay. And I like that sound, even though they're wild and they're that close to us, and they interact. But think about a world where none of that. I mean, it becomes white noise to us, even what's out there. But think how silent. Anyway.
Yeah, so that was terrifying when you think about that.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed this book. I have a lot of sympathy for the character as she was unveiled and her neuroses. Though my experience in life is not hers.
Right.
But her neuroses really spoke to me. So I'm going to jump into questions. Okay. The novel's epigraph is taken from a poem by Rumi. Forget safety. Live where you fear to live. How does that directive resonate throughout Franny's life? Do you think it's good advice? So Franny's our wanderer. She takes risks, which is what makes Niles fall in love with her.
Right.
Like, you know, of course he's intrigued by her, but you know he's fallen in love with her while he watches her swim out to these reckless children.
Right.
But I don't think she actually has fear the way she doesn't have that cautionary fear that
she has fear though.
She has fear, but she doesn't have the cautionary fear that kept Niles on the Nile.
Well, he was willing to do the same. Niles. It's Miles with an N.
The willing and actual. I'm willing to do a lot of things in my head. Actually, jumping in and doing them is a different thing. He stood there like, oh, those poor boys, and she's like, forget this, and jumps in.
She was getting his clothes off though. She told him to stop because he's like, are you a good swimmer?
Oh, no. Okay, yep.
Yeah, I don't think it's that she doesn't have fear, but I think the essence of that, you know, poem is that to do the things that are scary, right? And she's not afraid to be afraid, I guess, you know. And it's not that she doesn't have fear, because she does, but not in everything.
But throughout her time on the boat, she jumps in and does stuff that puts them in danger, because maybe it's not a sense of fear, but a sense of caution.
I think it's more of a sense of need, because she's doing all these things because she has to do them, like to fulfill this goal that she has set for herself, to finish her life off she can't not get where she needs to go.
Even if it puts other people in danger without volunteering other people for danger.
She doesn't volunteer the others because I feel like she, tells them like, I'm gonna do this, or like, if you don't want to, I get it. Like, she doesn't actively put them in danger.
Yeah, she does on the boat. There's times where she goes wandering off and someone has to go save her, and they even tell her.
But that's not of her own accord. That's, I think,
her inner driven.
Or no, it's her mental illness. Is that she's, she's sleepwalking. She puts herself in danger. But she doesn't do it actively to.
That's true.
There's absolutely what is the like? There's absolutely people who are affected by her self-harm. Yeah. So like, their first night married, she's strangling Niall when she's having her usual nightmare. We'll go to visit his parents. She lets all of the exotic birds out of the cages.
Right.
She's wondering
and she's actively like apologetic about it. She said she owns up to it, and she doesn't do it on purpose.
She's wandering the reserve. Niall goes to find her and get her out of there before they get in trouble for being where humans aren't supposed to be. He falls into the fjord.
Right.
But this is great. That's a great match of her and Ennis, though, because he's not intentionally trying to harm anyone. But how do they meet? Like, their meet cute,
right?
Is him?
He's jumping into the ocean for no reason, and she's like, "Oh no, I saved this man."
You were at the bottom of the ocean. Oh, I was just trying to sober up.
Yeah.
Right. But everyone around him can see that she saved him.
Right.
Yeah.
They're a perfect match for each other. Reckless, strange behaviors to the outside perceiver.
Right.
So that that destructive behavior that endangers others is what she's most afraid of. Like, it ties into her fear of letting anyone love her, which I think is her greatest fear, is that she will destroy the people that she loves.
But she's also willing to destroy herself to save people around, to save strangers. So her unconscious mind will do self-harm, but her conscious self might risk harm if to save someone else. So it's an interesting juxtaposition.
Oh yeah, she is
she's
war
not
with
afraid
herself.
to jump on in.
She is always at war with herself.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's good advice? I mean, I don't think it's even advice. I think it's just, this is how Franny lives. Like,
yeah.
I wouldn't live like Franny, but
no.
Take risks and do scary things sometimes. Sure, that's good advice. Otherwise you wouldn't do anything.
Right.
My husband always jokes, because he never wants the kids to really necessarily drive fast, take chances.
Mm-hmm.
The take chances part, yes, but maybe not the drive. Well, yeah, maybe drive faster than I do. So.
Yes, Grandma.
Hey, I made it. I went 80 to get here.
Whoa.
I didn't know your car could go that fast.
Depends on who's driving that car.
That's true.
Which is why I'm never allowed to drive it. I know.
No, you guys I'm much more cautious with other people in the car. Without people in the car,
I know.
I go fast. I've passed you sometimes.
I passed you the other day.
Yeah. That's funny.
That's my favorite thing to do at work, is to pass it, because we all come in from the same direction. And so I have this hot tip of like which street to turn right on to avoid the main street. And I've given it to one person, and he will not do it.
He doesn't take it?
I love, which it makes me like him more, to not take that advice out of the pure spite of, I will not let Anne be right.
And that's fine, because he's not sharing with anybody else, so.
Yeah. Anyway, so I love it every time we're at that transition point, and I get it to work like 3 minutes faster than him. One little choice, 3 minutes faster. I like this because this reveals that we should have known all along. Discuss the novel's first lines. The animals are dying.
Yeah, see? I feel like at the beginning it was pretty clear.
Soon we will be here alone. How does the disappearance of wildlife in mass extinctions shape the characters in the plot? What are the similarities and differences between Franny's world and our own? Would you describe this novel as dystopia? Why or why not? This question gives credence to what you're both saying of like making an alternate reality. Mm-hmm. But in my head, I was really always reading it as a near future dystopia.
Like a cautionary tale.
Yeah. Or, yeah, exactly. Like, this is where we're headed.
So being that they're fishermen, and I have friends who are commercial fishermen.
I've never seen fishermen the way that Franny paints them.
No, I mean
whalers, dolphin killers.
Oh yeah,
shark killers.
I've
I see that kind of fishery as
I've
the
been on
bloodbath
look,
it is.
Even I've been on the whale watching tours where they're not just nicely stalking, but they're like actively hunting down with their boat to get that so that their people can get pictures. That was really uncomfortable. There's one point where when the kids were little, we were on a boat. There was one company where we used to do homeschool tours, and after that particular ride, we did not go with that company anymore, because they heard where other boats were, and they had too many boats surrounding this really young whale, and he tried getting away, and they're all like hunting him down and trying to pin him in with their boats, which is really stupid. And he breached really close to one of them, that being ours. And yeah, we didn't do that again. But I also know some commercial fishermen, and they're very they don't overfish, maybe because they're a family business, but I kind of felt for this small group. This is a small fishing boat. They're not getting, I mean, if they break even, it's one thing, but you think it's not just all the animals above on land, but it was also the fish in the waters that were being seriously depleted. And you wonder how that affects, how much longer is mankind going to live without all of this? Not just as a source of food, but
right.
what they do to make the environmental habitable for humans.
Exactly. That's what Niles has a rant near the end of the book when he calls Franny to tell her that the ravens have died, and that there's no more. They are officially extinct, and no more even in their family of birds.
Oh yeah,
like that entire Corvidae family is gone from the earth. And he just goes on this like emotional stream of consciousness of like, of course we'll keep the animals that we want to eat alive, and we'll kill all the insects because people see them as pests and they don't know how beautiful and amazing they are because they don't serve an obvious purpose. And it's the hubris of humanity. Like,
yeah, you kill those insects, you might as well be committing suicide, because those insects are what's keeping your food going,
right?
Your non-animal food going.
Yep.
And even if all you had was animals, they help provide food for the animals you want to eat. So
yeah, there's different takes on what is happening in the world and how to fix it, because there's that whole part of the book when they're at the sanctuary in Nile, and I don't remember the woman's name.
Oh, the other scientist.
The other scientist.
Oh, the other pretentious.
They argue all the time about like the things that are
that's
important at the time.
That's a different scientist. That's the one at school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is the one at the sanctuary.
Yeah, so he's like, he has optimism and hope, and she's like, no, this is,
And also, we're only going to focus our resources where we see.
Right.
And it's like, that's the problem.
Right.
It's like humanity only sees this narrow view, and we're right now, I still ascribe that we're the dumbest animals on the planet because of how we behaved the last year and a half. But, that's a whole nother thing. But again, we're the dumbest discussion. Yeah, we're the dumbest animals on the planet. Like, how did we get to where we are in the food chain?
Yeah, we have thumbs.
And we stood up.
Yep.
Like those two things. Bada bing.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting how different, the different characters react to the different, the problem at hand, and I can't exactly tell what Franny's motivation is, except that I think she feels like for her own sanity, she has to know that there's still birds, so she's following the Arctic turns down to the Arctic or the Antarctic, to make sure that they get to where they're going, because then she has hope that things can still continue the way that they have for so long, right? If they don't make it, then there's no chance for anybody else, right?
Oh,
and Ennis's take is like, I just have to, make sure that there are still fish out there so that I can prove that I'm, an effective person. I can be a husband and a father, and I can get my kids back, and I can, do all these things, and that's what's important to him. But he doesn't care so much about the whole environmental aspect of it, I don't think, as much as he cares about,
Well,
like, the here and now.
He has a place for it in his heart, though. Like,
Yeah.
when the sea turtles caught in their nets and they let all the fish go, and she's like shocked that that's their reaction. She's like, "It's like, you don't think we have any love for
Right.
the sea ourselves?" Like,
we're not just like monsters that go about, you know, taking and taking. You know, they just like when my middle son was vegetarian, he decided that he wasn't going to have anything. He didn't, you know, he was knitting because he's the one that knows how to knit, and he decided he wasn't going to do any wool because
how sad.
he didn't understand that people who keep sheep for wool take care of them, because that's like you don't abuse the thing that is providing for you. But then maybe some people, that's the thing about about the world, is that people just take things for granted, and they don't mean to be abusing, but they just are not caring enough to look at the effects of their actions.
Oh, that's a good way to perhaps describe her like they're actually both sides of her relationship with her grandmother. Like, her grandmother couldn't see how her coldness would be shaping Franny, and Franny couldn't see that woman had like all the love in the world for her until she was way into this journey. Like, that's one of my favorite revelations for Franny is she goes up to the crow's nest and remembers how she acquired her love of the night. It's sitting in the dark, looking at an endless sky with her grandmother in the animal, or in the barn, I guess. There's something paddock was in there.
Yeah.
So, what's amazing to me though is that she's not a scientist.
But isn't she?
She cares.
She's not an academic.
She's not an academic, but she's willing to go out into the field and do stuff. And all those people at the sanctuary, they're so academic and book learned. None of them. I mean, Niles always wanted to go out in the field. Why didn't he? Why didn't he push himself to go out into the field when he could have?
Sanctuary is the closest to the field.
I mean,
but I don't feel like,
and even then he would only stay within the borders.
I mean, they're scientists in the academic sense that they're trying to, you know, figure out the solution to this problem and whatever. And I didn't feel like that was Franny's motivation. I don't think she cares to figure out how to fix it, you know, as much as she just cares to be out there to see it for herself.
Yes.
She's not a scientist in the sense that she wants to figure out the answer to the problem. That's what
true.
Scientists do, is to find the solution, which Niles and whoever else works at the sanctuary.
And maybe she just wants to document the passing. And this, like a memorial, you know, it's like if she knows something's dying, and it would be wrong not to at least observe the passing.
Yeah.
It is a memorial. The whole journey is a memorial. Yeah.
And when we find that out, I don't know if I can talk about it without crying. Arctic terns have the longest migration of any animal, and during their lives, they may travel the equivalent distance to the moon and back 3 times. What do Arctic terns symbolize in the novel, and why are Franny and Niall so drawn to them in particular? Well, the like relentlessness of life moving forward no matter what takes place. Like the pounding of life against you is the storms, you know.
Yeah.
The storm that kills the the one they're following, is the, you know, pounding of life against us and pushing forward.
Yeah, I think they represent hope. You know, in that there's, you know, still hope in knowing that they can, you know, persevere, and so we can, or that, you know, nature can in some way or form. But if they don't make it, like, you know.
Yeah, I think
there's
that,
no hope.
I mean, the Arctic terns begin as an importance to Niall. And they are the most important thing to him in death is he wants to rest where they nest. And they so represent, like, they represent Franny, like in the synopsis there that says that she's as delicate and as hardy as them.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a good way to describe her character, because she is soft and she is fragile, and yet she approaches the world like devil may care.
Right, hard and
don't worry
Mhm.
about me. I'll be fine on my own.
On a hammer.
Push people away and on purpose.
Right.
Mhm.
And that these birds, they're unfriendly. They have a driving ambition to move forward. But Niall loves them. Niall introduces her to them. And I think he loves them in the way that the things he loves about them may be the same things that drew him to Franny. That drive, that fragility, but relentlessness, and
she's kind of a wild thing.
resilience.
She's kind of a wild spirit.
Yes.
And he's not. And maybe that's that opposite, that thing that he admires, that free spirit, devil may, like you said, the devil may care attitude. I think he fell in love with her for sure the moment he saw her dive into the water.
Yeah, he was intrigued by her, but his
right. He shows up at her house at 3 a.m. that same day to be
says,
like,
"We're gonna spend our whole life together."
Yeah.
Which I appreciate that, because I know that is real and true. That I knew I wanted that the moment I knew I wanted to marry my husband was very early in our knowing each other.
But I felt like if he had told me that at the time, I would have been creeped out.
Yeah.
If he had shown up at my door at 3 a.m. and be like, "We're gonna spend the rest of our lives together," I'd be like, "This is creepy."
Yeah.
Don't make me
cute.
Don't make me get a restraining order.
Right. Right.
Yeah. But she's like, "Okay,
see, but that's the
married. Let's go get married."
Yep.
Wow. Okay. There's not even Vegas there.
Well, thank God. I mean, I love their wedding, and I love his mother's well, why wasn't I invited? I mean, if any of my children got married and didn't invite me, dead to me.
Oh, yeah.
But I love that happened in this book. The first time Franny sees Niall lecture, he quotes Margaret Atwood, which this is the first time I'm seeing Niall's name written. I mean, in these questions, Niall. So not like Niles.
I think it's Niall. I think she calls him Niles, but I think his name is Niall.
Because I heard Niles.
Yes, but I think his name is
Niall or Neil.
Niall.
Niall. Okay.
Yeah.
Like Niall from One Direction.
I was.
Sorry, that's how he spells his name. I don't know why I know that.
And oh yeah, I was thinking
is he Irish option?
He's something like that, maybe.
So I wanted to spend some time in my brain on why Margaret Atwood was chosen, and I don't know what book this is from. We ate the birds, we ate them, we wanted their song to flow up through our throats and burst out of our mouths, and so we ate them. We wanted their feathers to bud from our flesh. We wanted their wings. We wanted to fly as they did, soar freely among the treetops and the clouds, and so we ate them. We speared them, we clubbed them, we tangled their feet in glue, we netted them, we spitted them, we threw them onto hot coals, and all for love, because we loved them. We wanted to be one with them. Why did he pick that passage? How do the themes of love and destruction echo throughout the novel? I think we've talked about that a lot.
Yeah. It's a good quote, though.
It's beautiful, and it's so perfect. I think that passage, as far as why Niall may have chosen it in his lecture, it both indicts us but gives us the motive. Our motive wasn't out of ugliness and destruction. It was to be something better than what we started as.
But where the destruction comes in is it doesn't matter what our intentions are. Sometimes our best intentions still create damage.
Best road to hell.
Yeah. Doesn't matter how great your intentions were. That's the effect of intentions.
Indicted for murder, intent is really a big part of.
That's true.
At least in American law.
But when you murder all life because you killed all the animals, because you poisoned the environment, but you didn't mean to. Does that count?
You did it without it's the thoughtlessness that is the sin.
The callousness, yeah.
I have always wondered what passenger pigeons taste like, though.
I've not wondered that.
Are they different than regular pigeon? Because I've had pigeon.
They're supposed to have been bigger, fatter, juicier. Like duck? But we'll never know.
There's I don't know why I know this. I mean, I do know why I know this, but there's I think they're sandhill cranes. are known as the ribeye of the sky.
Really?
Because they're supposed to be very delicious. If you have the chance to eat a sandhill crane, they're supposed to be.
Okay, why do you know that, Katie?
Because my cousin-in-law really wants to eat one and talks about it all the time. If he sees a bird flying overhead, he's like, "Oh my god, it's the ribeye of the sky." We don't have sandhill cranes around here. Like, you have to, like, go, I don't know where they are, but you have to go somewhere and get a permit and have to do this whole process in order to eat one, but...
Do people normally eat cranes, or is that just, like, roadkill that someone discovered? Wow, this is good.
I have no idea.
I think that humanity has probably tried to eat everything.
That's probably true. That is very true.
Maybe we got to where we are because we're the hungriest.
I think it's because we developed refrigeration.
Yeah.
You know, other animals,
that's kind of
they can only eat what they can carry for that day, or whatever's left over gets picked off by the next level of species. But
food preservation for sure. What does Ireland represent to Franny? Australia? Discuss the importance of home and belonging in this novel and how Franny's search for it shapes her life.
I think Ireland feels like home to her, and Australia never did.
Yep.
It's her home and native land. It's where her mother's from. It's where her family's from. You know, she doesn't know who her dad is. She has no connection to her father or her father's family. So when she's sent to Australia, she's like, I don't know any of these people. I don't know why I'm here. I don't belong here. But when she's in Ireland, she feels like she is, at home, I think, is what I got from it. But I was thinking when I was reading this that this is stupid, but I have been to Ireland, and I've heard people, like, in novels like this or whatever, talk about, like, when they come back to their, like, native home, they're like, they have this feeling like, this is where I belong, right? And I always joke that that's how I felt in Ireland.
Oh.
I'm like maybe 30% Irish. I don't remember what my DNA was, but we figured it out once. So I was, like, joking, like, oh, this is where my people are from. Like, I don't know anything about my heritage because I'm, like, a generic white lady from all over the place. But I always joke that when I got to Donegal, and I was like, there's all these little lambs, and it's beautiful, and these green rolling hills. I was like, this is where my soul is meant to be. This is where my ancestral land is. So I felt like Franny, and I mean, hers is obviously much more realistic, and mine was a joke, but...
Well, I feel a little sad this year as St. Patrick's Day approaches because it is still my favorite holiday, but I found out in the last couple of years that most of my Irish heritage is a farce.
Oh, no.
Oh.
That my great-grandfather, last name was Arnie, and he was, like, Irish to the bone, and so proud of that, and he grew up in... his family's from between French Canada and Minnesota, but they were rooted in an Irish enclave. So Arnie is a bastardization of Arnold, and it's part of Benedict Arnold's family.
Oh.
Not directly in his line, but it was a cousin of ours, which I am delighted by. And then now I'm sad because there is some still Irish heritage in my family line, but I don't know what it is. So I feel that much less Irish.
That's kind of funny. Sorry.
This particular part of her story really kind of resonated with me as someone who was constantly moving around as a child. I think it's more of the need to feel rooted someplace, to have a place of belonging when you grew up not feeling like you belonged anywhere is really, really important. Even if you wander, part of being able to be sane and feel a sense of connection is that it's that sense of home, right? It's not just a place. It's just, it can be any place, but when you're a wanderer, you feel untethered. You feel like
she never had that true sense of home,
and to feel grounded inside it. You almost need a base in your mind, a place where you know you belong. And she never.
I think that's what Niall was to her. Not necessarily.
Niall was home.
Yeah,
Niall was home. He was a sense of grounding.
She was worried that he would leave. She's like, I'm going to leave, but please be there when I come back. And he promised that he would be for her, and he was.
But she still kept searching for her mother, even when she was with him. Until
he tells her.
Yeah.
Not until he tells her what happened to her mother. Which this is the longest
No,
we've
I
gone
thought
without explicitly saying the spoilers.
Oh,
I know. No,
It
I
didn't
thought
really matter.
no,
though.
no. I thought she kept searching and kept searching, kept searching. She kept going and taking trips and talking to people and
In
interviewing.
the first year of their marriage, for
And
their first
then-
anniversary, he tells her that he knows that her mother is dead.
And he tells her that she knows that her mother is dead.
Which
Then why
then
does she go
becomes
searching?
It becomes a reoccurring thing that she reveals to us again and again, that these memories of death blip out of her mind.
It's like a recovered memory. She doesn't know
Yeah.
that she saw her mom hanging dead in their home.
Mm.
She doesn't remember that because
That's
it's
pretty
out of her
trauma.
brain.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing you shut back and you tuck in a drawer and you stuff down.
She's so
from then
afraid
on,
of death.
Yeah, from then on, she avoids going near anything that is near death or has just died.
Like the bird,
Right?
in the lecture hall that was.
Yeah, she's repulsed by that bird. Then there's another time they're walking on. It's another memory. She's walking on the seashore, and she remembers that she forgot that there was a dead bird in the stones. And just other times of like, and ultimately the biggest deaths in this, which is the deaths caused by the car accident, which again is so artful in our learning of Franny, because she goes on and on saying she's a murderer.
Right. And you're like, who did she murder?
Right. And somewhere in there when she's arrested, they said they're both dead, Franny.
Yeah.
And then we find out she had a daughter. I knew Niall was gone, but I wasn't sure.
My whole thought was like, okay, he's definitely dead. She killed him. I don't know how, but it was manslaughter, so it was an accident. I thought she had murdered him and her daughter for the longest time, but then she didn't.
Yeah.
When she had a miscarriage.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, who's this other person?
And then my
killed?
heart completely softens to her, 100%. Like, and then when we find out that it's Niall who died in the car accident, and then a stranger,
right?
Like I'm still broken about it. I just wanted him to be back at the university.
I knew he wasn't.
Yeah.
Well, because she keeps writing letters to him. So I kept.
Letters were I knew she was never going to send those letters.
She was never going to send them, but I kept thinking, this is again trying to make that connection. You're right. He is, even when he's not here. When he doesn't, when he's no longer alive, he is still her tether.
There was a point.
So writing letters is her trying to be tethered.
This
still.
One thing that kept me from thinking he was dead is when
she's in prison.
Yeah, when she's talking to the lawyer and she's like, "I'm going to fire her again," and then they're like, "But the oh gosh, what's Niall's last name?" Because she refers to the family name.
Yeah.
They want me out of here. So it's like, well, maybe Niall is still alive and begrudgingly helping her.
I thought it was
whatever.
When she was talking to the lawyer and she asked her, like, Franny, have you heard from Niall since you've been in here?
That's fair.
I was like, wait a minute. Like,
yeah.
I intended to go back and re-listen to that, then knowing that he actually was dead. I didn't do that, but
there are two different. That's
what hung me up in my mind. I was like, wait, well, maybe he's not dead, but he's got to be dead.
Yeah. I did listen a second time.
It took me a while to understand why is his mother helping her. His mother hated her.
But she didn't.
But she didn't. She was just rude.
That it was an accident. Her mother is apologized. A cold woman.
She is.
I don't think she is though. I think she was
maybe
at the
she's
beginning,
like Franny,
but she
outwardly hard.
She forgives her for if she was that cold and hard, she would have never forgiven her for letting her birds go or for marrying her son or whatever, and would have wanted nothing to do with her.
Yeah, that was amazing. Her turn,
right? Because in the morning she was like, "It's okay," and I was like, "Oh, I did not expect it to go this way." She apologized for being cold and rude at dinner and stuff like that.
Well, that was a half.
That was.
Apology.
I mean, yeah, that was. I thought she did it because she knew that that's what her son would want.
And I agree. Like, it's
to honor her son.
A shred of Niall that she can be a part of. Like, they can take that comfort from each other. I was really surprised that the second person...
She wasn't as cold as I thought she was going to.
Fair, yeah. I was really surprised when the second person was not the daughter.
Yeah. Because you have this revelation when she's talking to Anik, is that his name?
Yeah.
And they're talking about what happens when you die, and she's like,
maybe my daughter will be there.
Yeah, I was
my
like,
God.
oh, okay, well, now we know she's dead.
Yeah.
Well, first you're like, oh, she has a daughter? Oh, okay, her daughter's dead.
Yeah.
But you didn't know anything more about that, and I was like, okay, well, apparently, him and the daughter, yeah, I don't know.
And for some reason, I thought, well, maybe they both died in the accident, and then you find out, nope, it's something different.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. There's so many layers to the story. I love that it's these layers that are reveal. It's more and more depth. It's not like there's red herrings that make you intentionally. There's no misdirection.
No.
Yeah.
There's just enough vagary that your brain fills in the blanks.
But
And then
also,
you get to see, oh, it's not like that.
You're sort of falling for this front that Franny's putting up from the very beginning, that she's a scientist. Like, you're a victim of that as well as everybody else in her world.
Yep.
At the beginning, she's like, I'm a scientist, I'm doing this and that, and you're like, okay, you take it at face value, and then you realize that that's just all, a facade that she has put up in order to get where she wants to go. I always remember
it's useful.
Yeah. I always was excited when I was listening to it, when there was a new chapter break or whatever, and it was like, Ireland 12 years ago. I was like, oh, okay, cool, we're going to find out something new that happened.
I was so utterly distracted by the choice. I loved it, but utterly distracted by the choice to keep the book in present tense.
Yes.
No matter where we were in time, she is always telling this story as she is living it,
as she's experiencing it at
moment.
that moment.
It did take a bit for me to. I always had to pause and think, okay, I know they're telling me this is happening then, but to put the jigsaw puzzle pieces, the timeline together, it still took a little work.
It makes sense, though.
I didn't mind it in this book, though. Sometimes I
it
don't
was
like that.
Beautifully done.
Yeah.
Beautifully done.
It makes sense because she doesn't remember all these things that
Right.
had happened either. So she couldn't be like, oh, I went and I did this, because she doesn't know,
something else I noted, that was something Franny says about that wondering and how she adapts to be a wanderer and make that her survival routine. When she is hitching and she catches the ride with the surfer girls, and they're like, well, what are you going to do next? What are you doing with your life?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, I thought my life was just here with me.
Which
is like her perfect adaptation to be completely self-contained world.
Yeah, they're like, isn't your life back in Dublin
that's
or wherever she's can't remember, but
Galway. That's it.
Galway.
She I think it was like the perfect response to something we have all heard, which is wherever you go, there you are. She likes that.
Yeah.
She's like, this is perfect. I can, trust that.
It's like her own life is a mobile home.
Yeah.
She doesn't need anything else.
And I sometimes fall victim to the like, I'll go do this and things will be different, and then remember the wherever I go, there I'll be. But maybe that's not a bad thing. Take me along.
Yeah.
So I like the introduction of that idea of it's not so bad to go along with yourself. Why does Franny take responsibility for the deaths of Niall and Greta? Greta is the other person who died in the car accident. Do you think she is right to blame herself and plead guilty?
Yeah, that was interesting.
I don't like that that's what happened to her, but I think it's perfectly in character for her to punish herself for it.
Yeah.
I mean, she's been punishing herself for her mother's death, even though she wasn't like cognizant of it being that.
Right.
But that's not her fault. Someone chooses suicide for whatever reason. That is not the fault of the people left behind. But this poor little girl has been punishing herself for it for her whole life. So I think it's completely in character. It was a miscarriage of justice for her to be convicted, because she's not in a healthy mental state. It was an accident.
And they could have known that.
Yeah. Except the forensic evidence that there was no breaking.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
she was in this heated conversation with Niall about what was going to happen next for them.
Right.
But they still could have considered it a crime of passion at most.
And her lawyer's right that she was convicted in a state of mind that was unfit, and
Right.
that wasn't fair to her. But
this is not a question in these questions, but do you think that she saw the owl?
Yeah, I actually don't know. I haven't thought about this.
I don't think she's a waking hallucinator.
No.
But she does have an untrustworthy perception sometimes. So I don't know.
I think she does. I think that she is lucky enough to see things like that. She saw an owl. She was friends with the crows. At the end, when they make it to where they're going, and there's a whale, and there's the terns, and there's fish, and there's like all these things. I didn't doubt that she actually saw it.
I think she did because she's an observer. She observes things that
True.
other people. She's observing things that other people just don't notice, because lots of these things that people don't notice are like visual white noise.
Yeah.
They tune it out.
Which is why humanity's letting everything disappear in this reality. They're not paying attention. And even when they are paying attention, like Samuel, who goes home to Newfoundland, his daughters pay attention.
Yeah.
But they're focused on their sustainability, like their sustenance, as well as doing it sustainably.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what they're focused on, as a family unit. And the other thing I was wondering about, and I wanted to look this up and didn't take the time to, so I'm interested if you guys have any knowledge on this. So, like, ravens and owls are very symbolic birds throughout human mythology.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but different mythologies have different takes on them.
Right.
Like, some traditions, like Ireland and Scotland, see ravens as, harbingers of bad.
Yeah.
And owls, I don't know what the mythology in, Western Europe around owls are per se, but I know that in many cultures they're good luck.
Mm-hmm.
But then sometimes ravens are good luck
in
other cultures. So I'm like, I don't know what's happening with this choice to have the ravens at the beginning of her life,
right,
and the owls causing this disruption in her life. Do you guys have any insights about what those might mean?
I don't.
I'm still not like,
I don't know if it's as deep as that, but I don't understand it enough to maybe appreciate it, I guess.
You don't think it's like a very deliberate choice?
I'm sure it could be. I just don't understand the nuances enough.
I don't either.
To appreciate
I feel like it bears exploration, so I want to look deeper into it. I just finally finished the Viking series, and Raven is the the sigil of the lead character, and he's a wanderer. Like, he has to go forth into the world and conquer, and maybe that's why that's for Franny at the start. But why is an owl, which is generally a portent of good?
Yeah.
Why did an owl do this to her life? Why did the author choose an owl?
Yeah, I don't know.
So,
I mean, what else would have been flying around at night?
Fair enough. Well, there are some other things.
No,
I think.
Know.
Bats. I know it had to be a bird. But
I don't know. I don't know. Bats are bird adjacent.
Yeah. Franny believes the world is worse than death. It's worse than anything. Do you agree? What is she afraid of? Well, she's afraid of love.
Yeah. I mean, I don't agree because
right?
I don't want to kill myself.
And she doesn't agree at the end. Thankfully.
She decides that she doesn't believe that anymore. No.
Yeah. Thankfully, she does not. And she gets a new chapter, and she hears Niall's voice from beyond to drive her to survive. No, I do not agree. The fear world is... Oh, the fear world. I didn't say it very clearly. The fear world might be worse than death.
Yeah, I could see that.
But she emerges from it and does not... Like, she has a death of that version of Franny.
I mean, like you said earlier, we are a very dumb species as humans, but also we're not,
Yeah.
We understand that it's... That
a
we
deep
can
internal
be better.
life.
You can become better than your fear, and you don't have to be a victim of it. I mean, it's hard for some people. It's a lot harder for some people, but yeah.
At a few key moments in the novel, including on the last page, Franny remembers her mother's advice. Look for the clues to life. They're hidden everywhere. What does she mean? Discuss the role of fate versus free will in these characters' lives. Well, I think looking for the clues is how Franny empowers her free will.
Yeah.
Because if she looks for the looks in the direction that life is pointing her, she has a myriad of choices. Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a big question.
Free will, because as I'm saying, I'm like, oh, life pointed her. Isn't that predestination? But you could choose any, like she could have chosen any boat captain to really push herself on.
Yeah, and she shows up and the name of the boat is the Raven, and she's like, well, this is fate, you know.
Yeah.
I think she's aware of fate in her life.
Yeah. But the way that she meets Innes because on my second listen, because at first I was like so discombobulated about that scene of diving in to save him, finding out that, and like, oh, this is the captain she's looking for.
I knew from the very beginning that's who that was.
I had,
when you met her outside.
Yeah, I didn't get
that's
it.
The captain.
Yeah, I didn't get it till the second listen.
Oh,
I'm like, who's this dude?
I was like, oh, we're looking for a person. Oh, look, here's a person. Must be the same person.
No, I was very like, I think it's a symptom of having trouble having like gotten in the start of this book. I wasn't like fully engaged, so I missed that. Oh, this is Innes, but it's not by design. It's that she tripped into him.
Yeah.
And their natures brought them together. Oh, does she have free will?
Yeah, she does. Because at the end of her life, she decides that she's not going to kill herself.
Yeah.
She's going to keep living.
Yeah, because if she was bound by fate, she was fated to get to Antarctica.
She got to Antarctica.
Fated to get into the water, you know.
And she did.
Yeah.
And she fulfilled that.
And
she's
she
like,
died.
Actually, you know what?
And
I
died. And she didn't really have plans after that. So.
That's as I re-listened to that moment because I wanted to be in that mindset before we started. I listened to that this morning, and Leia is always appalled by her without knowing why she is the way she is. Like, you don't seem like a woman on the run, she says. And she's like, I'm not a woman on the run. Yeah. I'm a woman with a destination and a plan. Obviously, like, she goes back, she finishes her prison sentence, she gets her degree.
Yes.
And meets her dad.
It comes back to, I think, the point that what she's looking for the whole time is hope, because once she gets to the end and she expects there not to be any birds at all, she doesn't expect to find anything, I think, by the end of it. And when she does and she gets there and she sees it there and there's a whale and there's fish and there's wildlife there, she's like, oh, well, I guess not all is lost, which gives her the hope to continue to live so that she can actually now become a scientist and do something to help.
Those are all the questions I like from this list.
Okay.
Because we've organically discussed all the rest.
Okay, cool. Well, we've reached about our time, so that was a good.
Yeah. I like this book a lot.
Yeah, I would definitely, obviously, if you've listened this far, I would recommend reading it.
Yeah,
I should have said that at the top. But I did like that it, I liked it.
I was surprised by it. I'm glad I chose this book from from the source I did, which was the LA Times book club. Because I also would not have chosen this book. I'd heard of it, and I was like, eh.
Yeah, I would recommend it to people now that I have finished it, because it was engaging and it was entertaining. It was tedious at points.
Yeah. But
I'm glad it wasn't any longer than it was.
Overarching, I completely enjoyed the journey.
Yeah. Well, that is it for Migrations, but now it's Karin's choice to pick the next book for the next month.
So our next book is by Jacqueline Woodson. It's called Red at the Bone.
Okay. Can you give us a little synopsis or something?
Two families from different social classes are joined together. Is this the same book?
Yep.
By an unexpected pregnancy and the child that it produces, moving forward and backward in time. Oh, another one of those. With the
happens a lot.
Yeah.
With the power of poetry and the emotional richness of a narrative 10 times its length. Ooh. Jacqueline Woodson's No,
I know.
I know. The meaning, it's not. It's.
I get it.
What is the hours? We'll just stop there.
What is the hours? Oh, it's only 3 hours
and 4 hours long.
4 hours long. So it's.
Are you kidding me?
3 hours and 52
Oh my
minutes.
god!
You
get
winner. But okay,
gold star.
This is good because I have a lot of books I want to read this month. So.
Okay, cool. But it sounds like it's going to be a tearjerker, a really emotional, like the concentrated emotion.
Continue.
Okay,
sorry.
All right.
Jacqueline Woodson's extraordinary new novel, whenever this was, in 2019, uncovers the role that history and community have played with the experiences, decisions, and relationships with these families and in the life of this child. As the book opens in 2001, it is the evening of a 16-year-old Melody's coming-of-age ceremony in her grandparents' Brooklyn brownstone. Watched lovingly by her relatives and friends, making her entrance to the soundtrack of Prince, she wears a special custom-made dress, but the event is not without poignancy. 16 years earlier, that very dress was measured and sewn for a different wearer, her mother, for her own ceremony, a celebration that ultimately never took place, because her mother was pregnant then.
The shame.
The shame. Unfurling the history of Melody's parents and grandparents to show how they arrived at this moment, Woodson considers not just their ambitions and successes, but also the costs, the tolls they paid for striving to overcome expectations and escape the pull of history. As it explores sexual desire and identity, ambition, gentrification, education, class, and status, and the life-altering facts of parenthood, Red at the Bone most strikingly looks at the ways at which young people must so often make long-lasting decisions about their lives, even before they have begun to figure out who they are and what they want to be.
So your plan is to rip my soul open.
Yeah.
Okay.
In only 4 hours.
Yes.
With it only being 4 hours, I already went on the cloud library and borrowed the book. But if it's only that, I might just read it. It's only 4 hours.
That's a good point.
I might look for an actual copy of it.
I haven't read one of these in a little bit.
Yeah.
A good little shorty.
Yeah. Okay, well, we will meet you in...
Oh, wait, any reading recommendations from the month?
I've not read anything else.
Yeah.
I never read
Hold
anything else. I always skip this segment. You're going to be real surprised one time when I come back. I'm like, guess what? I read something.
Sometimes you have something.
Let me go to my library, because... So what happens is, I didn't realize how much I read until I go through my library and I'm like, okay. So N.K. Jemisin wrote, this is the first book of what's called the Great Cities Trilogy. And it's called The City We Became. And it's a little sci-fi, but not, but like in present time, it's not like Aliens or anything like that. It's like good versus evil, but I finished this book and I'm like, when is the second book coming out?
Ooh, you have to wait.
Oh my gosh. And it's like, she wrote it and it just came out literally a year ago this month. And I'm like, and then COVID happened and I'm like really hoping that, everything's digital. She could still be writing it. It could still be being published right now.
I've been waiting 3 years for the next book of Outlander to come. That was supposed to come out 2 years ago.
But
so, who knows?
N.K. Jemisin is really prolific. She has so in the meantime, I went back and I started the Inheritance trilogy by the same author. But yeah, so The City We Became is, especially with the audio. Now I'm told, I'm a West Coaster, so to me the voices in the audiobook that do the different boroughs sound like what I expect. But having spoken to some New Yorkers, they're like, no, that's all wrong.
Okay, whatever.
So, whatever.
Suspend disbelief. That's what you must do every time you enter.
But the author's a New Yorker,
world.
so I would think that she would have, maybe has nothing to do with the audiobook and who the voices.
Can I add an asterisk right here and say that the narrator of the audiobook for narrations was incredible.
I agree.
All of her accents were incredible.
It was so perfect.
She did such a good job. Anyway,
yes.
It was so good.
So perfect.
Yes.
So
like the way, because it's so important, the nuance of Franny's accent and I
she's
completely
Irish,
agree.
Yeah, Australian
completely
people
agree.
are like, where are you from? And it's so good. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, totally
no,
agree.
that's
when she's speaking for Ennis.
That's true. Okay, perfect. So that's so true. When you have an audiobook, there's some audiobooks where the narrator does a horrible job distinguishing the different characters.
Or some people
they
do
don't do
less good jobs, like with Jim.
Yes, Dale.
Jim Dale versus Stephen
Fry.
Thank you. Thanks, Katie.
You're welcome.
Stephen Fry is an excellent audiobook reader, but Jim
Dale is so good.
Out of the water.
Yeah.
Some people would argue with us. A lot of people would argue.
I don't care.
But...
Bring it.
So Migrations. Kudos to the narrator of the audiobook because
their name was.
I was fully hearing different characters. Yeah. My brain did not even say this is this is one person. My brain told me these are different people talking.
Mhm.
So
the author's name was, or not the author, the narrator's name.
Mhm.
I can't find it, but it was a
They said it so many times and I did not absorb it.
it was like an ambiguous name, because at first I thought it was going to be a man, and I was like, oh, because I like listening. Like, I would rather listen to a woman tell the story of a woman.
Yeah,
but I can't figure out. Oh, Barry. Barrie. And I was like, that's a man's name.
Yep.
But she was great.
Those are, I will have to check those out because I love series, very much love series. But I might stay away from the one that you're desperately waiting for.
So you're not also desperately waiting?
Well, I hate that feeling. That's why I love to like wait till a series is almost done and then binge up to the end, which is terrible because how do they get more funding if you don't partake
if you're not there
in it
from the beginning?
Yeah. I
read it.
Yeah. I don't have any super good recommendations. I am reading a book with my daughter, which I will my recommendation is go back and reread the books you loved from your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
We're reading Bunnicula right now. Oh, I love Bunnicula. And then I opened the book. It's an anniversary copy of it. I gave her for Christmas. And it has, I had no idea. Like, I read all the Bunnicula books, but I did not know that the author of those books had written like 30 novels.
Wow, that's crazy.
So we're going to dig into that.
Oh, that's fun.
So reread the childhood books you loved.
Mm-hmm.
Either to yourself or if you need an excuse to read aloud to someone, that's
right.
even better because then you have a bond over the book. So that's my rec.
Great. Okie dokie. Well, we will meet you in April for Red to the Bone. Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
Red to the Bone.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks.
All right,
Happy reading. Bye.